The following is a presentation from PokerStars.com. Last night on the big game, Daniel Negreanu found his mark.
It's me and you again, looks like.
Nah, it seems like it's always me and you, man.
Yes.
And then settled in against the rest of the table.
I had you.
That's not gonna look good on TV.
Doyle's frustrations continued as he waited for his rush.
Nice little game y'all got here.
While the loose cannon, Ernest Wiggins, finished the night on an upswing.
I got the queen, ace queen.
Tonight, see if E-Dub's journey continues against the best in the world on the big game.
Hey.
Hey, man.
This is the PokerStars.com Big Game.
Welcome to Las Vegas, home of the big game. Alongside Joe Stapleton, I'm Chris Rose, and tonight some of the greatest players in the world continue play in our state-of-the-art poker room for cold, hard cash. Daniel Negreanu. He's had a solid 2 nights so far, up over 19,000.
Doyle Brunson, the godfather of poker, more resembling Sonny at the toll booth. He's down 152 large.
The Unabomber, Phil Laak. He's actually the leader so far, up over $85,000.
Tony G, the Aussie stack started heading down under last night, but he's still up 47K.
And our loose cannon is 35-year-old Ernest Wiggins from Washington, D.C. He's been staked $100,000 to play. He gets to keep anything over $100,000, but right now he is $11,500 in the hole. And the last player at the table is the poker brat Phil Hellmuth. He's with Amanda Leatherman.
Phil, what are your impressions of the table now since you've played a little bit?
Well, I'll tell you, our online qualifier is playing pretty good, I think. He's letting Daniel run him over a little bit. So every time he limps in, Daniel's going to raise him. We can kind of take advantage of that. Daniel's kind of playing the rush. When he wins a few pots, he keeps playing hands. Tony G is pretty steady, pretty solid, and Doyle's just always solid, and but he's not picking up many hands.
All right, and what are you doing?
I'm basically just trying to play pretty patient, and I'll make a few bluffs when it's appropriate. But I'd like to just show them the best hand and win some chips and set them up to bluff me.
Well, you get out there and bluff them.
I'm gonna set them up to bluff me.
Go.
As Phil takes his seat, let's review the rules for the loose cannon. Each cannon staked $100,000, keeps all winnings above the initial $100,000. And at season's end, the loose cannon who's won the most money earns a North American Poker Tour passport worth $50,000.
Let's get this party started, eh, Chris?
I gotcha. It's hand 58 out of 150.
No.
Nice starting hand for Phil Laak, who just limps in. Tony G folds, so does Phil.
Ace-Queen is usually a raising hand, but this passive limping style has been working for Laak so far in this game.
E-Dub gets rid of his hand.
Yeah, the new day threw me into.
Jack Deuce, not enough for Daniel, and Doyle's getting a free look at the flop.
Yeah, woke up tighter.
5-6 ace.
Phil Laak's paired his ace. Doyle's flopped an open-ended straight draw.
Goes check, check. Jack of spades on the turn.
The past 2 nights, Phil has played his big hands pretty passively, letting his opponents do the work for him.
Doyle bets 1,500. Call by Laak.
Phil just calls, still slow playing that ace.
7 of spades on the river.
Doyle's caught up a bit. He's paired his 7, but it's not enough to catch up to Laak's aces.
A check by Doyle.
With Doyle's check, Laak's very confident in his hand. He's trying to figure out the right size value bet to get paid off by Doyle.
Bet of 2,200.
All right, I didn't want to win an ante.
Doyle doesn't bite.
And Laak wins the first hand of the night. Well, Phil Laak continues where he left off, while Doyle continues to leak a little more money.
Passive play keeps working out for Phil Laak. He's got to be careful. Eventually, someone's going to catch up with him.
And why don't we catch you up on the rules of the big game? Each table lasts exactly 150 hands. The action pre-flop is pot limit and becomes no limit after the flop. Blinds are 2 and 400 with a $100 ante, all of which is paid by the player on the button. And every player begins with at least $100K, but can rebuy for up to $500,000.
Doyle's already had to make 1 trip to the ATM. He's stuck over 100,000.
Action begins with Tony G. Ace-3 offsuit.
1,000.
Makes it 1,000. Phil folds. Ace, queen offsuit for our loose cannon.
The first two nights, Ernest has not played his big hands very aggressively. Let's see what he does here.
And he just calls. Daniel gets rid of his jack high. Doyle makes the call, as does Phil Laak.
Ernest has got to start playing more aggressively if he hopes to cross that $100,000 mark.
10 deuce 8 on the flop. Doyle checks.
Somehow none of these four players have caught a piece of this flop.
And checks all the way around.
Ernest checks the best hand again.
3 on the turn. Tony G gets a piece of it. Doyle checks. Phil Laak leads out to 2,200.
Feels this is a pretty safe board.
Tony G calls.
Tony now with the best hand.
Ernest folds.
Misses opportunity with another big ace. Doyle reaching for chips, only a 9 high. He might be trying to take this pot away right here.
What is it?
A raise to 10,200 by the Hall of Famer.
Doyle's hoping his image will be enough to take this one down.
Dr. Brunson and Dr. G in a hand with little old me.
I don't know what Phil Laak is thinking about. His nothing's even worse than Doyle's. Gets out of the way.
Now Tony G acting with third pair.
Tony G loves to play. He hates to fold, although he cannot completely ignore the fact that Doyle has raised in very few pots.
Is there a shot clock? Ah, the fold.
Well, my reputation finally won one for me, at least.
You thieved that? 10 deuce was out there.
I know. I thought about that.
Doyle finally gets off the schneid.
That's the biggest pot I've won, by the way.
Yay.
The only pot I won.
Yay?
Yeah.
She just said yay.
President of Doyle's fan club, Amanda Leatherman.
I won 2 annies besides that.
I don't think Doyle's won anything since the $500 side bet from the first episode.
But that was an easy hand to play there.
Well, there's still 90 more hands for Doyle Brunson to turn things around. Phil Hellmuth gets us started with King 8 offsuit. Limps in.
I'm out.
Ernest Wiggins says he folds. Daniel Negreanu, 6-5 offsuit. Last night we saw him raise with 6 high, and here he raises again to 1,600. Doyle folds, Laak folds, as does Tony G.
We heard in a previous show that Daniel considers Phil Hellmuth to be one of the weaker players at the table, hence the re-raise.
Phil does call.
Bet in the dark one.
I want to see what comes.
It's a pretty loose call from Hellmuth.
7-10 king, a pair of hearts on the board, a check by Hellmuth with top pair. Daniel bets 2,200.
Daniel continues his lead from pre-flop action.
Raise 4.
A raise to 6,200 by
Let me
Hellmuth.
steal one from you now.
You can have it.
All right, thank you.
And I promise you, you did not steal this one.
You think?
Not a great spot for a check raise. Hard to get called by a worse hand, and if you get re-raised, you're in deep trouble.
No, actually, I don't. I was ready to gamble a little bit there.
With that win in the early going, Phil Hellmuth off to a nice start. He is up over 16 grand. The big game is just heating up. More from Las Vegas coming your way after this. Welcome back to Las Vegas, home of the PokerStars.com Big Game. Well, Phil Hellmuth loves to talk about his 11 World Series of Poker bracelets, but remember the Andre Agassi commercial where image is everything? Well, that's Phil's mantra, too.
Yo, I'm Phil Hellmuth Jr., 11-time world champion of poker, the Poker Brat. I never thought my image would last this long. I think the public thinks I'm this jerk. Thought people would figure out Phil's a good guy, and he's just the Poker Brat. But they haven't figured it out yet. I take it personally, or I should just realize, look, I've accomplished like everything in this game, but I don't. I get upset, and I'm like, I have to prove to these people I can play, and what I decided to do on my own was to, get rid of the Poker Brat image. I worked with a mindset coach, Sam Chauhan, and it's helped me. I always felt like when I went off and I'd start getting all emotional that it hurt me. When you're emotional, you're a little bit disconnected from logic and reasons. What he was about was making sure that there's zero self-destruction in my life and that I'm accessing all my powers and I'm as positive as I can possibly be. Keeping it in control has been, better for me. I think in 2010 I've become a lot gentler. This year I've rarely lost it, but it could happen where I lose it here. I'm Phil Hellmuth. I'm reformed at the tables, but I'm still a badass.
Believe it or not, Chris, Phil is actually one of my favorite players. He plays with a lot of heart, and I appreciate that. But if this new life coach somehow puts an end to the blow-ups, I'm going to replace him with Tony G.
He'll have Phil breathing through his eyelids. The loose cannon straddling.
See that? That's our man right here. He's starting to straddles. That's what I'm talking about.
If you two guys straddle, I straddle.
I'm straddling. Tony's straddling.
Tony's going to straddle if I straddle. I know that we're just trying to get the vote of Doyle. That's all we need. We know that Phil's
Doyle
never going to
started it.
straddle.
I kind of feel like I'm running low. I'm going to be doing an add-on, if no one objects.
No, of course.
I don't object.
Add on for as much as you like. Up to 500,000.
Action folds around to Doyle Brunson.
500.
Suited connectors raises to 2,800.
Doyle all of a sudden coming to life, maybe trying to get a little hot streak going.
Phil Laak folds. Haven't heard much from Tony G so far.
I call.
Makes the call.
Tony G's had good luck with that hand in this game. On Monday night, he flopped trip jacks and raked in almost 200,000.
Ace-9 offsuit for the newly reformed Phil Hellmuth.
Phil thinking about making a move here.
I raised the pot.
A raise to 12,600. The loose cannon.
6, right?
Ooh, pair of cowboys.
If there's ever a time to re-raise, this is it.
12-6.
Yep.
Call.
But just a call.
We have some cannon action over here.
Ernest just called 12,000 cold. Should be sending smoke signals into the sky.
Oh, started something.
He may be trying to set a trap by just calling, but by not re-raising, Ernest giving Doyle and Tony both better odds to call behind him.
Well, you can see Doyle's stack just 50 grand right now.
He's looking at 20% of his stack to call.
I know Tony's going to call it, so I might as well too.
Yeah. I love these big pots.
It's a very loose call from Doyle.
Tony calls.
Wow, what a sick hand this is. 4 ways.
I'm landing on anyway next pot, so it's like a free roll for me.
It's the danger of smooth calling with kings. Ernest has let 3 other players into this pot.
The flop 9-10-9 trip 9s for Hellmuth.
Phil has flopped the Hellmuth out of it. Our loose cannon Ernest is in big trouble if he can't get away from this, and honestly, Chris, I don't see how he'll be able to.
Tony G is checked on over to Phil Hellmuth.
That flop looks like you, doesn't it?
No, Phil, I look like me.
Ernest very confident.
17,000.
Phil bets 17,000.
If you look like me, why you bet so much?
Ernest is actually asking the right question, but isn't looking for an answer.
Wow.
All he can see are those 2 kings.
$36,000.
I love you, Ernest.
I'll try it again. Well, I just can't.
Doyle
I
folds.
was gonna raise. I'm so sick.
Tony G's out.
Wow.
This is almost certainly disaster for our loose cannon.
200,000.
What are you going to do if I move in? You going to call?
Phil, of course I have no choice but to, my brother.
You got aces or kings or something or what?
Man, if I had aces or kings, man, I'd be the man right now, wouldn't I?
This is why this show's so fun.
You're the best.
Boy, oh boy, I don't think I have a choice here. This is so sick. All right, I guess I'm all in.
I call. Kings.
I got 3 9s.
You gotta be kidding me. Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah,
What were you slow rolling him
come
for?
on, yeah, man.
Maybe he had 10s full. I mean, he was so happy.
That was so
That
unreal.
was torture.
I didn't mean to slow roll. Hold on. How many times you want to deal it?
Oh, hey, thanks for asking me.
3 times?
Yeah, that's, huh?
3 times?
Yeah, run it 3.
3 times.
3 times.
3 times.
Yeah, that'll
You
work.
might win one of those 3.
Gee whiz, man.
Wow, and you straddled and everything. That was perfect.
You made it so much before the flop with ace-9.
Our loose cannon has 1 foot out the door.
You want to deal it 4 times?
When you asked him, you're going to call if I go all in, and he said yes, what percentage of you didn't believe that he was given the straight dope there with that little bit left? Wasn't it like
a little bit left? He had
50,000 left. That's one of the worst slow rolls I've seen in forever.
No, that's not.
When you know he's going to call because he says it.
You know, Phil Laak, why don't you just stay out of it? Why don't you stay out of it?
Because I'm right here.
Because you've been so far out of line to me, and every time we've played, and I'm just sick of it. So why don't you just mind your business?
12,600.
But he's right. It was a pretty sick slow roll.
I'm sorry, because I haven't done anything like that in my whole life.
Were you folding? I can't get away from this. The whole speech. The guy's already in.
He's already got 80% of
Doyle decide.
Doyle, you're the.
He had 50,000 more. Did he have 50,000 more? You want to? I'll bet he had at least 40,000 more.
He put in 36,000.
I'll bet he had 40 more before you count and look.
74, 74,
What's the difference?
300.
How can you ever have that beat?
You want to deal it 4 times or what?
4 times?
Yeah. It gives you a better chance to win.
Damn sure do. Cool. Run him out, baby.
All right, 4 times.
4 times, need 2 kings. Wow, that's about 50, 50.
Spade, queen, jack.
Hey, run a jack.
Spade.
Hey, run a runner.
So we'll see the turn and river 4 times with each pot worth a shade under 50 grand. Run number 1, a jack of hearts.
Queen. Yeah, queen, king.
The river, an ace of diamonds. Round 1 goes to Hellmuth.
Phil Hellmuth is filled up and made a full house. He's locked up at least 25% of this pot.
Run 2. The turn, a king.
There we go. Full house. That's what I'm talking about, baby. Get me damn.
If you're in it twice, you got money back.
Damn. Oh, damn, I said 4 times, though. Damn, didn't I? Holy snap. I got to stand back up now. I thought it was only twice. Come on.
The river's a 3.
15% dog. Ernest has won the second pot.
So that's cool. I'm feeling good right now. Well,
you're still alive. You're still alive.
Our loose cannon will stick around. Round 3, a 7 of spades.
Everybody's rooting for a spade.
He can now hit a king or a spade to win this run.
The river, it is a spade.
God damn.
Spade, up 2-1. That's the loose cannon. He's up 2-1.
Why did you go for 4 times? You went for.
Hey, man, I'm just thinking of more house, man.
Oh, this is like slow roll. One more time. One more time. Put a king ball out there.
Ernest Wiggins has now won half the pot.
This is the thing right here. This is it right here, man. This is like big action right here. Right?
Hellmuth loves it.
Yeah, I really like it.
Come on, one more. King. One more king.
The final run.
Ernest's odds continue to get worse and worse, but Phil looks sick anyway.
A queen on the turn.
Jack. There's a jack.
You want a jack? That would be
king.
sick.
King or a jack? One time. There's what? 3 jacks left
right now.
The final river card. It's a king.
That's real. He hit 3 out of 4. He hit 3 out of 4.
That's
with the worst hand. Why is everyone so happy except Phil? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Huh?
Oh, yeah, man. That'll work, man.
If you do it once, you lose the whole lot. And every time you did it an extra time, you won a higher percentage of the pot. If you did it twice, 50%.
Phil deserved that. Doing that with ace-9.
Tony, can you please shut up?
The bike's coming.
He's having fun.
I mean, come on, man. You just want to rub salt in my wound every time. Show some class. Show some class.
But the hand. You're a professional. You're not meant to play like that.
I thought he might have tons full. That's the way I think, okay?
No,
now, you want to make fun of me?
You're
That's fine.
Ace-9,
You want to make fun of me? That's fine.
That's worse than King Jack.
When you got so excited, I thought maybe you flopped tons full. That's all. So, I mean, these people, they don't...
would have been better off folding.
These people, he's got it.
We got a they in. We're part of they again.
We're in the they.
Ask Doyle. Ask Doyle. I mean, this is the way I play poker, so...
This is not a good move. You know I'm calling you with ace... What are you doing? You're putting 12% of your chips in.
I put in 74,000 like a 7-1 favorite. What do you want?
Daniel loves that.
That was so funny. Jeez.
You got quartered.
You get all that pretty money, buddy.
Hey, that's what's up, man.
Now you back in the black.
There we go. Thank you, babe.
So for the first time all night, E-Dub has some money in his pocket. Now, can he keep it? And can this guy keep his cool? We'll find out next.
Gotta be kidding me. Come on.
Welcome back to the big game, where we've just witnessed one of the most miraculous hands in poker television history. Ernest Wiggins just pulled a rabbit out of his hat.
All right, I guess I'm all in.
I call. Kings.
I got 3 9s.
Ah!
You want to deal it 4 times or what?
Cool. Run him out, baby.
And beat nearly insurmountable odds by winning not once.
There we go.
Not twice.
Hey, all right.
But 3 times.
God damn.
And E-Dub remains in the game at the expense of Phil Hellmuth. Our loose cannon has turned a profit for the first time. Remember, he gets to keep anything he wins over 100 grand.
Phil Hellmuth says if it weren't for luck, he'd win every time. Well, luck is still a factor here. He's down 20 grand.
And one other clerical note, Tony G has dipped into his pocket for another 200K. Action starting on Doyle, who folds.
As like what? He's like, what are the odds of that, Phil Laak? You should know.
I think it was like 1%.
To win 3 out of 4 when he's that big a dog.
I bet it's less than 1%.
It feels like under 3%, but I have no
Yeah,
idea.
1 or 2%, right? Less than 1%.
Gotta be less than 1%, right?
Sick.
Our stats guys crunch the numbers. It's actually 0.18%.
That's 1 out of 549 times. Ernest would win 3 out of 4 times.
I got a call because of that, man.
Ernest has called Tony G's raise. Daniel's excited to be part of the pot now.
If you all check, I'll bet blind.
The flop, 8-7 queen.
Daniel's paired his 8s.
Ernest checks, Daniel checks, Tony checks.
Too predictable, you know?
7 of spades on the turn.
Number 7.
7 from heaven.
7 spades. Okay. I'll check.
Ernest checks. Daniel bets 3,500.
Tony 7 from heaven has given him a straight flush draw.
He raises to 10,000. Ernest folds.
Okay.
This is actually a sick laydown, but I think you have it.
I do. Ooh, can I see the river? This is big.
Big draw?
Straight flush draw.
Oh, I had an 8. That beats me. Yeah. I just had an 8. Yeah.
Nice semi-bluff from Tony.
Good lay down.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad. I mean, I figured you had something.
Yeah, you weren't going to call the river, and I wasn't like in a mood to kind of check the river.
And the look of the silent man speaks volumes.
Phil's life coach certainly earning his money today.
Action will begin on Phil Hellmuth here on hand 66. Yeah, get rid of it. The loose cannon, Ernest Wiggins. Jack 9 offsuit, limps in.
Says Jack 9's his favorite hand.
This isn't a bad hand for Daniel Negreanu, pocket kings.
Let's see if he can make them as profitable as Ernest did.
A raise to 1,600. Doyle gets rid of his hand. Phil Laak makes the call.
I'm gonna check out this time. I have a beautiful hand. Look at that, Phil. You would play this. You would play this every time.
And a fold by Tony G.
16 more, right?
16 total, 12 more.
Wants to see a flop with his favorite hand.
He's playing. Makes the call. 3 players to the flop. 7-9 Jack.
And Ernest's favorite hand connects over Daniel's pocket kings.
Check by Laak.
22.
Ernest has flopped top 2 pair.
E double up.
And bets 2,200.
Ernest hasn't let out at many flops. Daniel just going to call, play it cautiously.
Phil Laak with a flush draw. Also makes the call.
Ernest breathing very heavy here. He knows he's got a big hand.
The turn, the 10 of clubs.
Daniel's now picked up a gut shot straight draw to go with his overcards.
Check by Laak. A check by Wiggins.
This is a very wet board now. There's a lot of draws out there.
Negreanu bets 10,000.
Negreanu wanted to bet big enough here to chase out anyone who may be drawing. Like Phil Laak, who's only drawing to his 6 high flush. Ernest not going anywhere with his 2 pair.
The loose cannon makes the call. Off to the river. The 5 of spades. Check by Wiggins.
Oh, Daniel, come on,
I'm thinking. I'm thinking about maybe just doubling you up real good.
Ernest let out on the flop, then called the turn. Say what you will about the guy, but he hasn't been chasing a lot of draws, so Daniel has to know Ernest has a real hand.
I check.
2 pairs. Jack 9.
I knew it.
Favorite hand. Jack 9.
Poopy, poopy, poopy. I think it would have worked.
I mean, a real hefty bet, honestly. You know, I'm thinking like, I'm thinking maybe got an 8.
I had 2 kings, man.
Ernest rakes in a pot of over 32 grand, and look out, the loose cannon's firing on all cylinders. He's looking good and feeling good, Mortimer. More when we come back. Joe Stapleton and Chris Rose as we are coming to you from Las Vegas for the big game. It is hand 70 out of 150.
He played it perfect.
Action starts with Phil Laak, who folds.
Then you would have showed Phil.
Ace-Jack offsuit for Tony G, who raises to $1,000.
And I went to lost as much. Yeah, you.
Phil folds.
Yeah, but if I just run it once, he's gone.
As does Ernest Wiggins. Daniel folds.
Small raise from Tony. Doyle's going to defend out of the big blind.
That would have been good if you called. If you raised 30 and you
4
folded.
Queen 5, pair of clubs on the board.
Check it.
Okay.
Check by Brunson and a check by Tony G.
Doyle's paired as 5.
Deuce of diamonds on the turn. Bet of 3,000 by Doyle.
Doyle's also got a gut shot.
And Tony G lays it down.
Yeah, hallelujah.
He's on a heater.
You've done it.
Hallelujah, he said. Doyle's gonna get it in soon. I can feel it.
That's my third.
You're getting it in within the next 2 rounds.
I think you're right.
You're gonna race something.
It's hard to race when you pot limit for the flop.
Hey, Doyle, why's your hat on backwards?
Oops.
Is it a rally cap?
I was gonna say, I thought you took your logo off.
You just won a pot. You better go back.
Oh, that was the rally cap. Put it back.
Good point, Phil. Good point.
That's funny. Oh, that's funny.
Phil Hellmuth lays down his hand.
We're doing a round of straddles? Is that what that is?
I'm doing a round of straddle.
You're
I'm doing
round
a
of straddle.
straddle.
Doyle said if he won a hand, he was going to
I'm
be in there.
losing,
He
I'm
just
not
won a hand.
straddling.
Looks like we might be in it.
Straddle if you want
Now
to.
he's using an excuse
Straddle
because he's
straddle,
losing.
you want.
I'm losing. Everybody else straddles when they're losing.
Daniel raises to 3,000.
Okay. Rally's gone.
Yeah. You thought if you could have a rush that. You know.
Action folds over to Tony G, who makes the call.
2 strong hands going into the flop.
Queen 6 Jack.
King of the world.
Check by Tony G.
Tony G's missed. Daniel's going to fire with top 2.
Bets 5,500.
Tony's looking to make a call here. Tony has 2 overcards, even though they're no good. He's really only looking for a 10 to make a gut shot.
There it is.
Faster than you can say Andrew Lloyd Webber. Tony checks his Broadway. He's got the stone nuts right now.
Daniel bets 14 grand. A raise to 50,000 by Tony G.
A quick raise of 50,000. Tony's the kind of player that could be doing this with a worst 2 pair. He could be doing it with a draw. He could be doing it with flat out nothing, but a raise that big, that fast, usually means only one of 2 things, a monster hand or a monster bluff.
Daniel makes the call.
Tony using his hand to keep his mouth closed because it's probably watering right now.
The river gives Daniel a full house.
Now, even though Daniel knows he has the best hand, he's still trying to put Tony on a hand.
Tony checks.
By determining Tony's hand, he can judge how big a bet Tony will be willing to call here on the river. Daniel wants to make Tony G the honorary mayor of Valuetown.
Bet 80.
Negreanu makes it 80,000 to go. Snap call from Tony.
Negreanu shows him the bad news, hands him the keys of the city.
You had ace king. Jeez.
Yep. Well done, Daniel. Well done. Thank you.
Sick one there.
And I had a queen.
I didn't think he had ace king.
No, I know.
You played it good.
Nice dealer.
Sorry, Tony, you played it good.
I know that. Too easy for you.
Daniel rakes in a pot of more than 278 grand, the largest we've seen so far in the big game.
I didn't think you had 8-9 or ace-king.
Beautiful.
Tony G talking to himself. That's going to happen when you lose almost 140 grand on one hand.
Wow.
We are halfway home on the big game, and after the last hand, Daniel is way up, Tony G is way down. Doyle Brunson also continues to take it on the chin, and the loose cannon Ernest Wiggins, he gets to keep anything over 100,000. He is up almost 70 grand.
Alongside Joe Stapleton, I'm Chris Rose. And Joe, one of the unique elements of this show is that we're tracking statistics, which gives us the ability to explain how these players are approaching the game.
Chris, it's a very small sample size, but there are some interesting trends developing. First, we'll take a look at the VPIP, or voluntarily putting money in the pot. This stat gauges how often a player willingly enters a pot pre-flop.
So basically, it shows us how loose a player's playing.
Yes, and as you can see, Tony G is playing the most hands so far, nearly 60%, and Daniel's playing nearly half his hands. No surprise, Daniel's VPIP is high. He's sitting directly to the left of the loose cannon, so more often than not, when the amateur's in, so is Daniel. Might also explain why Daniel has the highest pre-flop raise percentage. Daniel's really taking advantage of his position on the least experienced player at the table, Ernest, who, as you can see, is playing very passively.
Well, Ernest has really been getting pushed around. He's lucky to be ahead in this game.
The poker brat would say he's lucky to still be in this game.
All right, so that is pre-flop. Joe, what about after the flop?
Check this out. That's where aggression factor comes into play, and we calculate that simply by adding the number of bets and raises and then dividing by the number of calls. So far, Tony G has bet or raised 5 times more than he has called post-flop, by far the highest at the table.
Unfortunately for Tony G, his aggression isn't paying off.
He's winning only 25% of his showdowns, but I'm sure Doyle would take it. His showdown win percentage is a big fat 0. For Tony G, loose and aggressive becomes very risky when you're getting no respect and having to showdown often, especially if you're not getting any cards.
All right, Joe, remember, we are just halfway home at this point, so it'll be interesting to see if these trends continue.
We got a live straddle over here.
We can do that. We can do that. It'd be cool.
You know what? He's Phil, this man right here is showing you up. Like, big time.
Yep.
Yeah,
He's straddling.
I saw him show me up.
He's straddling right now, okay? He's straddling right now.
That's only for the game, man. It's only for the game, man.
I like him. You're trying to cause trouble.
Yeah. I'm just calling you out.
You're trying to cause trouble.
I'm calling out because, you know, you're the NIT right here. The N to the I to the T.
Come on, what's $800 to the great Phil Hellmuth? Practically Bays and Cristal.
Doyle is raised to 3,000. Phil Laak on the button, 6-4 suited. Makes the call. Tony G folds. Steaming. Phil folds. Suited connectors for Ernest Wiggins, the straddler.
Looks like Ernest is actually calculating the size of the pot. Maybe his girlfriend / poker coach Rabbit gave him a lesson in pot odds during halftime.
Oh.
It'll be 3 players on the flop. Comes out King 9-10.
Doyle's flop best with a pair of 9s.
Check.
Ernest checks. Doyle checks.
Phil looking to take a stab here in position.
Phil bets 6,200.
I'm out of there. Nah, you got it, man. Go ahead. You got it by me.
Ernest folds.
Rated.
What's poker?
A check raise by Doyle Brunson.
There's only one move he's really got here.
Bet it all.
Raise your pot committed, huh?
He goes all in.
Whether Doyle's frustrated or just senses weakness, he's looking to double up.
You probably got me beat. 10, 20, 5.
Be tough to not have you beat, Phil. You have 6 high.
Wish I had a draw. I would call.
I knew you had 2 little cards.
2 little cards?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't too good.
King has space.
Doyle showed an 8.
No, there wasn't no kings in my pan.
The Jack 8 makes sense.
Wasn't no jacks.
I was owned.
The 7-8 makes sense.
I knew you didn't come in there with no 2 big cards on top of that. See how smart I am?
I was owned.
Internet players would have said, based on your range, on the calculations I've made of your PFR, there's clearly no way you had 2 pictures right? That's what Doyle just said. I knew you never did have no big cards.
I didn't think he did that time.
That hurt. 10K down.
I'm sorry. I'm going to win a pot before this day's over.
You did it.
Well, Doyle's not going to play this one. Ace-3 suited for Laak.
I wish you'd had a draw, too.
Raises to 3,000. Tony G calls. So does Phil Hellmuth. The loose cannon, Ernest Wiggins, gets rid of his hand. And the straddler calls.
This is a good opportunity to, if I could win this pot, I'd be de-steamed
This is the
in one hand
exact
from
situation where you won with ace-3 of spades, except you limped and he raised.
Nice read, Phil. I guess he's been getting life coaching from Obi-Wan Kenobi.
3-King-10 on the flop. Goes check, check, check over to Tony G. He bets 7,000.
Betting his flush draw. Hellmuth calls with top pair.
Daniel folds.
Deja vu. Deja vu. Look at that, Daniel.
Bottom pair not good enough for Phil.
That's sick.
Down to 2 players on the turn, which is the 6 of diamonds. A check by Hellmuth. Bet of 25,000 by Tony G.
That's a big, big bet. All Tony's picked up here is another draw. He's got a flush draw and a gut shot draw. He's trying to win this pot with pure aggression. He's more than likely steaming from losing that huge pot to Daniel a few hands ago. If Hellmuth is the NIT they say he is, this bet just might work. But if Phil would only look just a little to his right, he might be able to see the smoke coming from Tony's ears. Now, even though Tony has bupkis right now, he does have 12 outs. If Phil calls, Tony could still get there. Don't forget, young Padawans, Phil's a Jedi now, and he can dodge bullets, even with the blast shield down.
Well, I guess he's folding now, because I think Tony saw his hand.
Yeah, when Tony sees his hand, it's harder from the call.
Phil folds.
These aren't the cards you're looking for.
Good, you showed bluff, Tony.
Folds the best hand.
Nothing to show.
You can show it. I had King Jack.
Say the river, please.
Lord, he folded top pair.
I would have missed.
Would you say you would have missed?
I love Tony G.
I would have missed. I believe him too.
I don't.
It's fun, more fun to believe him.
It's more fun to guess what if I should have showed one card, there'd be no mystery. Now it's like, you know, I could have had something, I might have had nothing.
Good lay down, Phil.
Thank you, Doyle.
Chris Rose and Joe Stapleton back in Las Vegas, home of the big game. Action starts on Doyle Brunson.
Down for double again. It is down for double, too. Believe me, every time.
Folds around to Tony G.
All right. I raise it 1,000.
Raises 1,000 with 5 high. Quick re-raise by Phil Hellmuth.
Bizarre small re-raise from Phil Hellmuth.
Ernest Wiggins is out of the way, so too is Daniel.
Things can get nasty at the end, right? The river was wild.
It's a bizarre raise because Tony's definitely not folding.
6-9-4 on the flop.
Check.
Goes check, check.
Now Hellmuth checks top pair.
2 pair now for Tony G. Bets 4 grand. Phil calls.
Looks like Phil may have been trying to set a trap with top pair of 9s. Now calling with the worst of it, may have trapped himself.
Please.
And Tony makes a full house on the river.
10.
Call.
That's 10 grand. Phil calls,
call.
sees the bad news.
He has a full house.
You didn't raise?
At least maybe we'll get the blow up we're all waiting for.
I know you got a flush.
The 9. This guy's raising.
He's got a
raising.
9. You try.
Explosion's about to happen.
Bring the trike.
Bring the trike.
Oh, you can't drive a bike.
God, it's extraordinarily. Just so unlucky. I'm really getting sick of this. 4-5 offsuit.
Please. The game all evens out.
Bottom pair against top pair. Bottom pair against top pair. Where he's going to pay me off another 7,000-8,000. But no, he fills up and wins 14 from me.
You're a disgrace to the game.
Where do you come up with that?
I'll tell you, can I tell you one thing, Tony? Can I tell you one thing? I wish that I weren't a bad loser sometimes, but it's 10 times as bad to be a bad winner. And you're a bad winner, my friend.
Isn't the world made up of all kinds of
like
people?
80,000 in Negreanu. He's stuck right now.
He's actually losing.
I'm losing 100,000.
He just rubbed 4-5 in my face and told me how bad I played and whatever, and I'm a disgrace. That's a bad winner. You say what you want to say.
Action continues at this table of friends.
It's working.
You want to defend that going record?
He's not a winner.
Doyle Brunson calls the straddle.
He's losing. You're about even. He's losing, for real.
I got a straddle.
He's not a winner. He's losing.
So does Phil Laak.
Everyone's a winner, Phil. Everyone. All of us are here. All of us are winners out of life.
Tony G checks.
That's what Daniel said. I'm a winner at life. You're a winner at life. You're a brilliant person. You've done great. But not cash games are not your forte.
The flop.
It's not your fault.
He's good with the. He sets him up and he punches him pretty good.
Doyle checks.
I'm up a lot of money in the cash games and hold them only, by the way.
So that's what we're playing here. We're not playing.
Okay.
I'm playing stud 8 or better.
Phil bets 2,500. Tony G calls.
I offered like to play you any stakes, any game you can name, any amount you can count. You refuse to do that.
Doyle folds.
I'll play you high stake. We'll put it on TV. We'll play big.
Next year when I move to Vegas, you can bring your millions with you, and I'll take it from you.
You don't have to bring them. They're here.
I wish y'all would hurry and get here.
Phil checks. Tony G bets $5,000.
I'm coming, Dolly. I'm coming. But I'm going to choose the games I want to play.
That's fine.
Don't worry, you won't have a problem.
Tony G wins the hand.
Phil says.
No.
That works for a while, but
It works better in the fields that Phil Hellmuth wins in. Showing the cards.
Ace-5 might have been good, huh?
Ace-5 may have been just good. The kicker.
4-5 offsuit.
You know what Doyle's challenge is? Tony, do you think you'd be the best mind coach for Phil Hellmuth? Because it feels like you want to motivate him. I mean, you want him to play well, right?
But you do it by beating.
I tell you what I want. I want to crush him. I want him to be busted here. That's what I want. I'm not going to pretend. That's what I want.
Fair enough.
It might be bad, but that's what I want.
Action will start on Ernest, who folds.
I'm doing all I can. I've given him a lot of money actually doing that. You have a positive EV against me.
Daniel is raised.
I'm out of position. I'm playing just because it's you. Feel good.
Action folds to Tony G.
Tony G builds him up and beats him down. It's like some
Makes
sort
the
of
call,
like
as does Phil.
Jim Jones training camp thing or something crazy. I don't know what the hell it is.
The flop.
I've never seen it.
Check.
Check by Tony. Check by Phil. Daniel with his 10s. Bets 3,000.
Still fold. I know you're folding.
Fold by Tony and fold by Phil.
Good fold, Tony.
Queen, king.
Oh, you were drawing almost dead. Because one of these is a queen or a king. I showed a 10.
So Daniel wins the pot, and Tony G is unable to get his wish as Hellmuth remains in the game. Daniel made the biggest move tonight. He's won over 134K, while Tony G took a tumble. With the help of that big win versus Phil, the loose cannon Ernest Wiggins from Washington, D.C. finds himself in great position with almost $65,000 in profits.
All right, guys, it's the last hand of the night. DC, you have to be feeling good right now. You're up 64K.
Am I?
64 dimes,
I haven't
Yeah.
even been keeping up. I just been like playing poker. I really don't know. Really.
Not thinking about it too much?
No.
Tony, you seem like you're having fun with
I'm
Phil.
having a lot of fun. We're having a ball, Phil, aren't we? I know you want to win and then see how I'm crushed, but I only crawl around for about 5 minutes. I don't say
Tony
much.
G and Grey Goose make a great combination.
They do indeed. All right, that's it, guys. I'm Amanda Leatherman saying goodbye for now. And remember, if you've got the cash and the guts, there's always a seat open at the big game. See you next time.
For Joe Stapleton, I'm Chris Rose. We'll see you tomorrow night.
you gotta love Amanda. Thank you, girl. She's the best. She really is.
The preceding was a presentation from PokerStars.com.